Good evening to everyone. Please recite Namo Tassa 3 times in order to observe 5 precepts as our usual practice. Namo Tassa. Repeat after me. Buddhang saranang gacchami. Dhammang saranang gacchami. Sanghang saranang gacchami. Dutiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami. Dutiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami. Dutiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami. Tatiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami. Tatiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami. Tatiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami. Saranagamana sampunnang. Pānātipātā veramani sikkāpadang samadhiyāmi. Adinnādāna veramani sikkāpadang samadhiyāmi. Kāmesu miccācārā veramani sikkāpadang samadhiyāmi. Musāvādā veramani sikkāpadang samadhiyāmi. Surāmeraya majjapamādatthānā veramani sikkāpadang samadhiyāmi. Tisaranena saddhim pañcasīlaṃ dhammaṃ sādhukam surakkitaṃ kattvā appamādena sampādītabbhaṃ. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sammā sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sammā sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sammā sambuddhassa. Dear wholesome children, and dear friends in the Dhamma, meritorious children. Today, as usual, you have come to our temple to listen to the teachings of the Buddha as we conduct every month. It's our monthly Dhamma talk in English. And we have been practicing and we have been talking this series of Dhamma talks for a couple of months. I think it's going to be 2 years something. So today also I am going to teach you and I'm going to talk about one of the beautiful teachings of the Buddha and one of the most important factor that Buddha practiced, and he asked people to develop and he asked people to gain this so much in their life, whether it is day-to-day life or in a supramundane life. So this today's topic is about wisdom. It is about wisdom, but we have been talking about 10 perfections throughout our talks. I started 4 months ago this series of the talks to talk about the perfections. We call Dasaparamita in Pali. So I have already talked 3 topics. The Sila morality I have talked about morality at the beginning, and I have talked about generosity, perfection of practice of generosity, and also I have talked perfection of renunciation. So these 3 topics have been already talked by me. So today is the 4th perfections of 10 perfections. That is called wisdom perfections. It is very important in our life. not only to the Buddha, but also to the day-to-day life, especially for children and for the teenagers and also the middle-aged people. For everyone, this wisdom is required for their well-being and happiness. So before I start my talk, I want to give you my usual advice. Have you heard about my usual advice, children? What is my usual advice for you to learn, for you to get? My usual advice is you have to follow 3 steps. How many steps? How many steps you have to follow? 3 steps. When you listen to the talks of the Buddha, whenever you listen to the teachings of the Buddha, you have to complete, you have to follow 3 steps. Right? So, these 3 steps you need to follow. If you want to get the result, if you want to get the good benefits of the teachings of the Buddha, what is the first one you have to follow? First one, you have to listen carefully. You have to pay your attention towards my talk properly. You have to be very active and you have to be very attentive towards my talk. Why do I say that? Because if your mind runs here and there when you listen to the teachings of the Buddha, you will not understand, you will not remember, and you will not experience the real taste of the teachings of the Buddha. Why? Because your mind runs here and there. Can you remember something when your mind runs here and there? Can you? It is impossible. It is really impossible if your mind runs here and there when you are in the class or when you listen to something or when you are watching something or when you watch something or when you read something. If your mind is not in that particular moment, then you will not remember anything. Therefore, what you need to do, you must listen carefully. You have to be very attentively towards my talk. This is not what I asked. This is the Lord Buddha asked. Right? So first step you have to complete is sunata. That means you have to listen carefully. Can you listen carefully now? Don't let your mind to be like monkey mind. Can anyone explain to me the situation of the monkey mind? How does monkey mind work? Usually monkey mind always jump. Usually monkeys, they jump from one branch to another branch always, right? The monkeys, they do not stay one single moment as same as always. They always move. They always jump from one branch to another branch because they are very happy living in the jungle, right? So sometimes our mind also like that. We have monkey minds. Our minds always travels from here and there. It doesn't stay one single moment as it is, right? So sometimes when even though you are here now, but sometimes your mind may run back to your school, your mind may run back to your house or food or snacks or some cartoons or TV or something like that, right? Our mind always runs like that. But Buddha asks, please don't let your mind to run in that way. You have to keep your mind on this moment. You have to bring your mind to this situation. Don't let it go here and there. Okay? That is the first step. What is the second step that Buddha asks people to follow if they want to listen to the teachings of the Buddha? Dhareta. Dhareta means you have to remember the things that I am talking in this talk. right? Perhaps you may not be able to remember each and every single point that I am talking here. Doesn't matter. But what you have to do is that please put some effort in order to remember some main points, at least five points out of all the points in my talk. Can you do that? Can you remember? Yes, you can. I trust you can. Try to remember, try to put some effort to remember some important points of my talk. That is the second part you have to complete. What is the third one? Third one is charata. That is the most important and crucial thing that you have to complete. Among these three, that is the most important one. Dhare, sunata, dhare, the charata means you have to practice them. You have to put them into practice. You have to put these beautiful teachings into practice. Then you will experience the real taste of the Buddhist teaching or Buddha's teaching. If you want to listen, let's say like this, you come to temple and then you listen many talks and then you try to remember them, but if you do not put them into practice, will you be able to understand, will you be able to taste the real teachings of the Buddha? Indeed no. Right? Then what do you need to do? You have to listen carefully, you have to put some effort to remember them very well, and then at the end you have to put them into practice. That is the three steps that you need to go through and you need to complete in order to listen to the teachings of the Buddha. Right? I hope all your minds are here with me now. And also please try to put some effort to remember some teachings after my talk. Okay? Let's come to the main topic of the today. So today I am going to talk about wisdom. Wisdom. Have you heard about this term before? Do you have wisdom? Do you have wisdom? Can you talk with me, kids? Of course, you do have wisdom. If you do not have wisdom, do you know how to come to this temple? Do you know? You have some forms of wisdom. That's why you are able to do lots of things. Why do you eat? To survive. You understand by eating food help us to survive, to overcome hunger. So you have such kind of understanding and wisdom within you, right? So we all have some forms of wisdom. So today, I am going to teach you something very special about Buddhism, about wisdom in Buddhism. How Lord Buddha speak, how Lord Buddha taught about this wisdom in Buddhism. That is the most important one. Your conventional wisdom, your mundane wisdom, your worldly wisdom may differ from the wisdom in Buddhism. I will explain to you later. Okay? Listen carefully. At the end, I am going to ask you some questions. I will point you and I will ask you some questions. You have to answer them carefully and attentively and correctly. So please don't look around, don't look your parents, and look at me and listen to my talk carefully. Otherwise, you won't be able to answer to my questions. Don't disappoint me and don't disappoint your parents. Okay? Deal? Good. So, I am going to answer 5 or maybe 6 questions throughout my talk. You have to remember those questions, okay? 6 questions will be answered in this talk. So you have to remember those questions, okay? First one, what is wisdom in general? So I'm going to explain to you wisdom in general, in your understanding, right? Wisdom, how you define wisdom according to your understanding. So I'm going to explain to you. And the second question is, what is wisdom in Buddhism? how Lord Buddha explained, how Lord Buddha has elaborated this wisdom in Buddhism. Why Lord Buddha asked people to practice Buddhism, wisdom in Buddhism. So these questions will be answered later on my talk. The third question, why wisdom is important in Buddhism? Why we should develop Buddhism and why it is important in Buddhism. And the fourth one, how Lord Buddha, before becoming the Buddha, Bodhisattva, he practiced this wisdom in order to become a Buddha, in order to become a fully enlightened Buddha. Right? The perfections are wholesome qualities that Lord Buddha should perfect. If the Lord Buddha has not completed or perfected these 10 perfections, he would not have been able to become a Buddha. He has spent thousands of years, thousands of lives by practicing these 10 perfections in order to become a Buddha. So today we are talking, or we are listening, and we are learning one of the perfections that Lord Buddha practiced. So you also can practice later on these perfections if you want to become a Buddha in the future. Okay? So we are going to listen, or we are going to know some stories, Jataka Katha, Jataka stories, to explain, to know how Lord Buddha practiced these perfections. Right? Do you like stories, Jataka stories? Yeah, depends on the time. I may read some of the Jataka stories, but if I do not have time, I will just give you the titles of the Jataka stories, and you have some homework to do, okay? When you come back next time, I will ask whether you have read or whether you have read their stories, okay? You have to read it to me, okay? Dear? Yeah. So, the fifth questions that I'm going to answer is that, what are the obstacles of developing wisdom? Of course, we have lots of obstacles in our life, right? When you come to this temple today, what kind of obstacles do you experience on the way? Traffic lights, and the lots of vehicles, right? We always experience obstacles, problems, barriers in our life. Can we go to somewhere smoothly, peacefully in this world? It is really impossible. We have to experience lots of barriers and obstacles. Without barriers and obstacles, we won't be able to lead our life peacefully, right? We all have obstacles. But there are some ways and there are some systems and techniques to overcome barriers and obstacles, right? For example, if you want to go to city, so you always use Eastlink, right? Eastlink may be less traffic or less traffic lights or less vehicles, so sometimes you can go very high speed, right? 100 kilometers per hour. So without going to other ways, in that way we have some ways and techniques and methods in order to develop and in order to overcome our obstacles. So as same as obstacles for other problems, for developing wisdoms, also we have some kind of obstacles and barriers. Let's talk about later on, okay? And the last one, the sixth questions that I'm going to answer is how we should develop wisdom and how we should gain wisdom, what things we should do in order to develop wisdom. That is the most important one. So later on, when I teach you, when I speak you, when I give you these explanations, you can follow them and you can put them into practice. Then you know how to develop your wisdom. You don't have to worry. How many questions are there? How many? 6 questions, right? Please remember. Do you remember the questions now? Some, right? You don't have to remember all. You remember some. Good. So let me answer to the first questions. What is the first one? What is wisdom in general? How do you define wisdom in your life? Right? Wisdom is the quality of having experience, having good knowledge, having good judgment of things, right? And also it's a quality of being wise. And wisdom is the ability to think and act using knowledge, experience, understanding, common sense, insight. So these are the wisdom, these are the explanation, or these are the similar terms or words to define wisdom in general world, right? So, if you do not have some forms of wisdom, you can't differentiate the things differently. Can you recognize things differently if you do not have wisdom? Can you? If you do not have some forms of wisdom, can you recognize your mother or father? If you do not have, definitely you can't, right? If you do not recognize your father and mother, if you do not have wisdom, you can't differentiate them, right? So, you must have some kind of wisdom in order to differentiate things from differently, right? For example, when you hear some sounds of the birds, you know what kind of bird is that and what kind of sounds are they, right? And when you hear some beautiful music of someone, some famous singer, right, then you know who is the singer of this song. Isn't that so? Isn't that so? That is way, right? That's wisdom. Whenever you listen to some sounds or listen to some words of someone, then you can detect and you can differentiate whether those words, sounds are pleasant and unpleasant. Isn't that so? Because you have some kind of wisdom, right? And whenever someone cry or some sounds hear, then you know, oh, somebody is maybe unhappy or somebody is hungry because the baby is crying or somebody is crying. Maybe that person may have some problems. So you have that kind of understanding. You have that kind of wisdom, right? In order to understand those sounds. And also whenever you see something, you know and you understand. For example, when you see some expensive cars on the road, for example, like BMW and Mercedes-Benz. So if you do not have wisdom, can you recognize them? Cannot, right? So you have recognition with you, you have wisdom with you. You know that BMW is a quite expensive car. Isn't that so? So you have that kind of understanding and you have that kind of wisdom to recognize the things. Isn't that so? Right? And also, when you travel on the road, you know that when you sit in front or when you stop in front of the traffic lights, you know that green color is to go, right? Is allowed you to go, allowed you to drive in. So if you have the yellow, right? Yellow color. Is it yellow? Yeah, yellow color. When it is yellow, then we know that we should not go. We have to prepare to stop, right? And when it is red color, can we go? When it is red light, can we go? We can't. Why do you have such kind of understanding? How come you have such kind of understanding? That is because of some forms of wisdom you have within yourself, right? If you do not have wisdom, can you recognize those rules? Can't, right? It is impossible. That's why you have some kind of wisdom within you to recognize things differently according to the situation. Do you understand? Yeah. So don't tell that you do not have wisdom. We all have wisdom, right? Good. And also, if you have experienced once that water can make you wet, then you have understanding of the water is the substance of making you wet, right? So then you prepare. So for example, you know already that water can make you wet, right? So if it rains, what do you do then? You take umbrella to go out, right? And if it rains, you stop going out. Why? You understand, you have wisdom to know that water can make you wet, right? If you get wet, maybe you know that I may get sick. So you have that kind of understanding, wisdom within you, right? I'm talking about general sense of wisdom, right? I have not talked about wisdom in Buddhism yet, but I'm talking about in your context, in your situation, right? Wisdom in your situation. And also, when you have experienced burning due to some fire, then you know that fire is the substance of making or burning you, right? You understand that it's a substance of burning yourself. So you stop avoiding touching them. You stay away from fire and danger of that situation, right? Because you understand the fire can cause many problems. Fire can cause burning, right? So you have that kind of understanding and that kind of wisdom within you. And also, if you have wisdom, you know who are the good people to be associated with and who are the enemies not to be associated with, right? And also, if you have some kind of wisdom within you, you know what are the good medicines for your sicknesses, especially for hay fever and especially for runny nose. So you have some kinds of wisdom to recognize whether they are, right, what they are. Isn't that so? Right? You have some kind of wisdom within you. And you know what are the good food to be eaten or what are the good food not to be eaten, right? Whether food are eatable or non-eatable, right? You have that kind of understanding. Can you eat every food that you see? You can't, right? You must have some wisdom in order to differentiate and recognize whether they are eatable or non-eatable. So all these are related to your conventional wisdom, your mundane wisdom, your worldly wisdom. So you can't lead your life, you can't live in this world without this wisdom. Can you live? Can you live in this world without some forms of wisdom? You can't. Definitely you can't. You can't. I can't. Everybody cannot. Therefore, we must have some kind of wisdom. You all have some kind of wisdom. So what is the opposite of wisdom? It is not stability, foolishness, right? We all have foolishness, right? Sometimes we are foolish, right? Depends on some situation. We are not so smart. That is all about conventional wisdom. Let's talk about wisdom in Buddhism. Do you want to know how Lord Buddha talked about this wisdom in Buddhism? Do you want to know? Do you? Are you happy to know? Oh, please talk to me. Do you? Yes, you all do. That's why you are here, right? I also ask some funny questions, right? We are all here to learn and listen. Yeah. Let's talk about the wisdom in Buddhism. It is very much different from the wisdom in general world, actually. We call ultimate wisdom in Buddhism. We all must develop that ultimate wisdom in Buddhism, not conventional wisdom, but ultimate and supramundane wisdom. We must develop that, right? You know that in this world, all human beings, all beings in this world, they gather information through what? Through what? Through their senses. What do you gather from your eyes? What do you gather from your eyes? Information, right? When you see the statue of the Lord Buddha, what information comes to your mind? What information comes to your mind? When you see me, what kind of information comes to you? Oh, you know that I am a Buddhist monk. And when you see the statue of the Buddha, you recognize that is the Lord Buddha. And you know that Lord Buddha is the one who expounded the beautiful teachings for the human beings. So such kind of information come through what? Your eyes. Not only your eyes, all your senses, right? Isn't that so? That's why your senses are very important to get wisdom as well. And also, when you hear some sounds, now you can hear the talks, my talks, right? Then what kind of information come to your mind? The information about the teachings of the Buddha. You got the information thinking that I am listening to the teachings of the Buddha. And I am listening to his beautiful teachings. So you have such kind of understanding and such kind of information. Isn't that so? Right? And also when you hear some sounds from outside, when fire brigades come, then you know that there are some fire, right? Or maybe some problems or burning somewhere. So you understand, you gather information through your sound. Then according to that situation, according to that information, you react. So when there is a fire alarm, when you listen to the ambulance like Nino, Nino, then you know that maybe somebody is sick or somebody in hurry, right? So we have some kind of information. We can get some kind of information through our senses. Isn't that so? Right? Does it make sense? Of course it does. Right? And tongue, through your tongue, what information you gather? When you eat some delicious food, oh, you know that this is real delicious. I won't try it again. I want to know the recipe of this food. So you get that kind of information through your tongue, through your senses, right? Then according to that information, you react. Isn't that so? Right? Depends on the good taste, then you want to try it more, right? If it is bitter, do you want to try it more? No, definitely we don't, right? In that way, we gather information through our senses. But when you experience or when you gather information through our senses, you have to be able to recognize whether they are good one or whether they are bad one, right? When you hear some teachings of the Buddha, sometimes there are some monks, even they misinterpret the teachings of the Buddha, right? So you have to have some kind of wisdom in order to recognize whether they are good to you or not good to you, right? So that's why the Buddha said that whenever you experience the things throughout your 6 senses or 5 senses, like forms, pictures, sounds, smell, taste, touches, including heat and cold, so you must have some kind of ability to, some kind of wisdom to recognize what they are and whether they are good or bad, right? So that is kind of ultimate wisdom. That is kind of the highest wisdom which explains in Buddhism. In one context, and the Buddha has explained in deeper levels wisdom. And you know that when it comes to the Buddhism, when we sometimes we can say like this, all those the above explanation through our senses we experience the things, right? Sometimes those things also can be considered as like some forms of conventional wisdom. But when it comes to Buddhism, Buddhism means prajna, wisdom, does not merely worldly wisdom, right? It is far. It goes further actually. It goes further. Buddhism in wisdom goes further. The Buddha said that you must have wisdom in order to recognize whether these activities are wholesome or whether these activities are unwholesome. Right? Do you understand? In Buddhism, the ultimate wisdom should be to recognize, to understand whether these activities or actions are wholesome or unwholesome, or whether these things are evil or good things to perform, and also whether this person is to be worthy to be respected, and whether this person does not earn the respect, right? So, and also whether our body is a combination of other matters, right? Sometimes little bit, you know that little bit deep, this explanation. Sometimes our body is made of forms, right? Matters and consciousness, right? So, in order to understand that deep concept, you must have ultimate wisdom, right? That is a one aspect of wisdom in Buddhism, to understand wholesome activities and unwholesome activities, and evil actions and non-evil actions and good actions. So if you want to recognize or differentiate those actions, you must have ultimate wisdom within you. Sometimes you may have, but if you do not have, you can develop them, right? I will explain to you how to develop. That is called prajna, or wisdom in Buddhism, in one context, okay? Another explanation, there are some another explanation. And also the Buddha has given highest place in Buddhism for the wisdom. Those people who have developed their wisdom to the greatest level, and they will experience everlasting happiness of Nibbana, right? The perfections of wisdom is the result of Nibbana. The one who has perfected wisdom up to the greatest level, that person may experience everlasting happiness of Nibbana. That is the final goal of Buddhism, right? That is one context, also one explanation of the Buddha. You know that people in general society, they looked for wisdom in general world, right? They look for wisdom in commonly world, but in Buddhism, Buddhist people must look for highest wisdom in order to achieve the enlightenment. That's why Buddha asked people to develop ultimate wisdom, not conventional wisdom or worldly wisdom. Worldly wisdom may help you to lead your life in this secular life, but ultimate wisdom will lead you to gain enlightenment, right? You have to have both, not only one, right? Both in conventional wisdom and also ultimate wisdom. And in another context, Buddha said that wisdom means skill and skillfulness. About what? About to understand, to know true characteristic of the nature, true characteristic of the things. Skillfulness means special ability of knowledge to recognize, to understand true characteristic of the nature. What is the true characteristic of the nature? What is the reality of the nature? According to the Buddha, impermanence, anitya, dukkha, anatma. Impermanence, due to impermanence, unsatisfactoriness arises, and due to unsatisfactoriness, we cannot consider the things as myself, it's mine, right? It's called no self. This is quite typical actually, these concepts are quite typical. I had to have some other times to talk these three concepts, anitya, dukkha, anatma. It is one of the deep teachings of the Buddha. So you must have ultimate wisdom in order to understand these three characteristics: impermanence, and then the unsatisfactoriness. Impermanence means everything subject to change, right? Due to that changes, you feel unhappy. That is called unsatisfactoriness. So if something keeps changing, and then due to that change we feel unhappy, and due to that we can't consider the things as it is, as they are. They always subject to change. So even though you keep something which you really like, those things may change sometime due to some causes and conditions, right? So you can't consider the things as mine, myself, because those things always subject to change. If something changes, you can't consider them as mine and myself. Even you can't consider your body, myself, as myself, because we are subject to change always, right? That's quite difficult, but I try my best to explain to you. So ultimate wisdom means to understand the three characteristics of nature, right? Everything in this world are subjected to these three nature, right? Even yourself, myself, even these flowers, animals, everything, material, non-material, everything are subject to go through these three nature of existence: anicca, dukkha, anattama, right? Impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, and then no self. You can Google three characteristics of the nature. You can read more if you are interested in, okay? If you do not understand my explanation, you can go. Yeah, that is also kind of wisdom that you must have. And also the Buddha said that in another context, the Samyutta Nikaya, a connected discourses of the Buddha explains that ultimate wisdom means to understand the Four Noble Truths. Have you heard about the Four Noble Truths? You have, right? You must have wisdom, ultimate wisdom, to understand and recognize Four Noble Truths. What is the first one? Suffering, right? Dukkha Satya, the truth of suffering. And the second one, cause of suffering, right? The truth of cause of suffering. And the third one, cessation of suffering, the truth of cessation of suffering. And the fourth one is the way to the cessation of suffering, the path that you must follow in order to overcome suffering. So you must have that wisdom in order to recognize, in order to understand these Four Noble Truths, right? So that is the highest wisdom in Buddhism. But if you develop your wisdom up to that level, up to that understanding of Four Noble Truths and the three characteristics of the nature, you may experience Nibbana actually. It is not the easy process, but you have to develop and you have to practice. You have to do lots of practices in order to develop your wisdom. I will explain to you later. And also in Buddhism, wisdom is one of three major pillars practice of Buddhism, like Sila, Samadhi, Prajna, right? Morality and concentration and wisdom, right? These are one of the major pillars of practice in Buddhism, right? So you must develop these things. And when you talk about five faculties in Buddhism, Pancha Indriya and also Pancha Bala, 5 powers in Buddhism, the wisdom is there, right? If you have heard faith, effort, mindfulness, concentration and wisdom, Saddha, Sati, Viriya, Samadhi, Prajna. So these are called 5 faculties in Buddhism. Those are 5 among 7 factors of enlightenment, right? Those things we had to talk in another day, but I just give you a little bit explanation. And also this is the fourth perfections of 10 perfections, wisdom paramita, and it's very important. This wisdom always become the leader of these 9 perfections. So that person must have some forms of wisdom in order to fulfill other 9 perfections, right? So if you do not have some forms of wisdom, you can't fulfill or you can't perfect other 9 perfections. So you must have some kinds of wisdom. So wisdom can be considered the chief guest here to perfect other types of perfections. Let's talk about why wisdom is very important in Buddhism. So we already learned wisdom in general context and wisdom in Buddhism, and let's talk about why Buddhism is important. To understand the Four Noble Truths And to understand the three characteristics of the nature, we must have some forms of wisdom, right? If you do not have understanding, if you do not have ultimate understanding of these Four Noble Truths or three characteristics of the nature, you won't be able to experience highest happiness of Nibbana, right? That's why you need to have. For example, let's say like this: to do any various things, to conduct any types of things, we must have some forms of wisdom, right? To steal, to kill, to say, to do some actions, to fight, to cheat, to do all those things, you must have some kind of wisdom, right? Otherwise, you won't be able to do those things, right? So you must have some kind of wisdom to fulfill, to do those things, those actions, right? But when it comes to Buddhism, it goes further, right? Further develop ultimate wisdom. I will give a very good example. Those people in the past who have used their wisdom for the destructions for the many human beings, for the animals. Some leaders, some rulers, they have misled their wisdom for the destructions of many human beings. For example, I give you a very good example. You have heard about the Hitler, right? Hitler, right? Hitler was one of the main greatest leaders in this world. Have you heard about Hitler? Yeah. Hitler was one of the great leaders. He had a very enormous wisdom. But he had used his conventional wisdom to kill many thousands of innocent people, right? For the destructions of many human beings. He has used his wisdom, his conventional wisdom, for the destructions of many people. Is it a good wisdom? It is not a good wisdom. And also you may have heard about Osama bin Laden. Have you heard about him? Have you heard about him? He is one of the terrorist leaders in this world. And he used his wisdom, secular wisdom, conventional wisdom, to kill many thousands of innocent people for the destructions of many human beings. And also you may have heard about the LTT leader in Sri Lanka, Prabhakaran, right? You may have heard, your parents may have heard. He has used his wisdom to kill many thousands of innocent people in Sri Lanka, even small kids, children. He has used his wisdom for killing. So, what I want to tell is that, and also I want to give you another example, that in this world, some people, some rulers, they have used their wisdom to create some nuclear weapons, right? And also biological weapons, right? Are they making those things for the sake of human beings? No. They make these biological weapons and nuclear weapons in order to kill many innocent people. You look at the world, those people who have used their wisdom for the destructions of many people, they have destroyed our beauty of the nature, they have destroyed the animal nature, they have destroyed the water, they have polluted the sky, air, right? The sea. All these natural things have been polluted by these leaders who misuse their wisdom, right? So what you need to do, I guess this one, okay? The coronavirus also may have made by someone else, may have made, right? We have lots of speculation about that, but that kind of virus may have created by someone else, I believe. They use their wisdom to create lots of problems to the world. Why is that? Because your conventional wisdom, your secular wisdom always must go with virtue and discipline. Your wisdom, your knowledge is very dangerous without discipline and virtue, right? If you just have wisdom without discipline, without kindness, without love, without compassion, without loving kindness towards every being in this world, it's going to be very dangerous. Isn't that so? So you must have wisdom with discipline and kindness and compassion, right? If you want to develop your conventional and secular wisdom, you must have it with discipline and virtue and kindness and love, compassion. Then you can use your wisdom for the sake of human beings, not for the problems of human beings, right? Isn't that so? So whenever you want to develop your wisdom, please make it sure that your wisdom goes with discipline, virtue or not. Whether your wisdom goes with your compassion, love, and loving kindness or not, and kind, right? You have to think like that. Then you can bring peace to the world, right? And you may have heard about the dropping of the biological virus weapons to the Hiroshima in Japan, right? What happened that? Until today, many people suffer due to that destructions, right? Due to that dropping of bombs, biological bombs, right? In this way, these modern people, the very powerful people, rulers in this world, they misuse their power and they misuse their wisdom for the destructions of the world, right? Therefore, my dear children, what you need to do is you need to develop your conventional wisdom, mundane wisdom with virtue and discipline and kindness and compassion and love. Then you don't have to worry about. You can use that wisdom for the sake of many people, right? Yeah, that's all about wisdom in Buddhism, right? So you must develop your wisdom, ultimate wisdom, in order to understand Four Noble Truths and also to understand the true nature of existence, three characteristics of the existence. So if you have that kind of wisdom, actually you can gain enlightenment. That's why Buddha said, people, you must develop ultimate wisdom rather than your conventional wisdom, right? If you want to develop your conventional wisdom, it must go with your virtue and discipline, kind and compassion and loving kindness. It is okay. But if you want to develop ultimate wisdom to understand the Four Noble Truths and to recognize the true nature of existence, you must have ultimate wisdom. That's why when you have ultimate wisdom, when you have that kind of proper understanding of the things and the Four Noble Truths, you are able to lead your life happily and peacefully without any problems. You both conventional wisdom and the ultimate wisdom will be helpful for you to lead your life happily and successfully, right? And the Lord, let's talk about quickly how Lord Buddha practiced this wisdom perfection in order to become a Buddha. You know that Lord Buddha, before he became the Buddha, he practiced these 10 perfections up to the greatest level, up to 3 levels. Ordinary perfections of wisdom and superior perfection of wisdom and supreme perfection of wisdom. Up to three levels Buddha has used and practiced these perfections. But he practiced these perfections not for the sake of himself, but for the sake of all human beings. Think like that. If the Buddha had not perfected these 10 perfections up to these 3 levels, we won't be able to, we would not be able to, or we would not have been able to learn and listen to the teachings of the Buddha, right? Because of his dedication, we still have his beautiful teachings among us, right? That's why it's very important. So the Buddha always practiced these 10 perfections for the sake of human beings and for the sake of all the sentient beings in this world, not for the sake of his own life, right? And whenever he practiced these 3 levels of paramitas, 3 levels of wisdom perfections, he donated his wealth, he donated his property, he donated his belongings in order to develop his wisdom. And also when he practiced his superior level of perfection, he donated his wife, he donated his body parts, right? And he donated all his related items for the sake of many people. And when he practices wisdom perfection to the superior level, supreme level, he even donated his own life for the development of wisdom, right? I give a very good, very simple example to understand how Lord Buddha dedicated his life to become a Buddha by practicing these perfections. For example, if you want to learn something well, right? So if you want to go overseas and study, then what do? If, let's say if I stay in Sri Lanka, so I want to go to overseas to study, right? So when I want to go to overseas to study, I had to spend a lot of money, and I had to leave my parents aside, I had to leave my family members, relatives, and everybody, brothers and sisters, everybody I had to leave aside, right? In order to come to overseas and study. In the same way, the Lord Buddha had to give up lots of his belongings in order to achieve his goal of Nibbana, right? In order to achieve his final goal of Nibbana, he had to dedicate lots of things. Some students don't get it misunderstood because you know that maybe you think that by studying overseas or by studying some subjects, I may practice the perfection wisdom. You may think like that. It doesn't work in that way. The wisdom in Buddhism is always goes with detachment, right? Detachment and non-attachment. It always ultimate wisdom. Always must develop ultimate wisdom. So I can give you some of the beautiful stories. You can go back and read in the Jataka book. There are lots of beautiful stories online, on the internet. You can Google them. I give you the names of all those beautiful stories because we don't have enough time to explain all those stories, tell the stories. One of the Jataka stories which explain how Lord Buddha practiced these perfections is Ummagga Jataka. Have you heard about these stories? Ummagga Jataka. Okay, please go and read it. Then you may understand how Bodhisattva practiced this wisdom perfection. And also Sattu Baddha Jataka. It's a 396 Jataka story of the Jataka book. Ummagga Jataka is 538 Jataka book, story of the Jataka book. And Sambhava Jataka, 507 Jataka stories of the Jataka book. And Mahabodhi Jataka is a 520 Jataka story of the Jataka book. And also Vidura Jataka is a 537 Jataka story of the Jataka book. And Mahagovinda Jataka is also on the Jataka book. You can read, if you don't have time, don't need to read all these stories, but if you can, it's good. But at least try to read one out of these stories. I reckon you to read Ummagga Jataka. Okay? Ummagga Jataka is good. We can learn lots of beautiful things. So, and the last, not the last, the fifth question is, what are the obstacles that we experience when we want to develop wisdom in Buddhism, right? There are some 5 obstacles we always experience when we develop wisdom. Those 5 obstacles always hinder us to develop our wisdom. They are called 5 hindrances. 5 hindrances in Buddhism. You can Google them also, you can learn them. So those are called 5 hindrances. Those 5 faculties or 5 hindrance, 5 factors always hinder you by, they are barriers to develop your wisdom. They always stop you by developing your wisdom. They always stop you developing your wisdom. What is the first one? Kama chanda, sense desire, right? If you have sense desire, that means you always provide lots of things for your senses. For example, for your eyes, if you always keep watching movies, and if you keep watching, or if you keep listening to music all the time, and if you play games all the time, so you let your senses unnecessarily to be enjoyed, right? So if you have too much pleasure for your senses, actually the chances that you get to practice meditation and chances you get to practice in order to develop your wisdom may less, right? Because you always provide more attention to your sense pleasure. But these 5 things are very big topic. I need to have another separate time in order to explain one by one in details, but I give a very short explanation for each, okay? So vyapada means ill will. Ill will means anger. You may have anger when you practice meditation, right? Sometimes you feel anger towards teachers, like spiritual teachers who give you instructions to practice meditation. So you may have anger towards them, right? And also, sometimes you hate yourself. I don't want to practice meditation. I hate meditation. So you may have some kind of ill will within you, right? So if you have ill will, you can't develop wisdom. You can't develop meditation. And the third one is thinamidda. You have laziness and sleepiness. When you practice meditation, when you want to practice meditation, you always experience sleepiness, right? And laziness. My back pain, my head pain, my legs are pain. I don't want to do today. It is too hot, too cold. So you have such kind of laziness within you. So those are obstacles to develop your wisdom. And also, uddacha kukucha, restlessness and worry. You worry about the result of practicing meditation. You worry about some good actions you have done in your previous life, and you worry about some actions you have done in the past, and you worry about some actions you are doing at the moment, and you worry about their impact in the future. So you have such kind of worry within you, right? Restlessness. And also doubt, vicikiccha. Vicikiccha means you may have some doubts about the practice of meditation. If I practice this vipassana meditation or insight meditation, may I be able to get good result? May I experience peace of mind? So you have such kind of doubts within you, right? So these are obstacles, but if somebody can overcome these obstacles, that person can actually develop his wisdom, right? And he can gain some jhana, spiritual powers, and spiritual abilities when someone can overcome these 5 obstacles and practice of meditation. So this is all about obstacles. Let's talk about what you should do in order to develop wisdom. This is the most important part. For the conventional wisdom, what you should do? Can children tell me? For worldly wisdom, what you need to do? For the worldly wisdom, what do you need to do? I don't know, because I'm not living in the worldly world. Maybe I'm a Buddhist monk, so tell me, I want to learn from you. What kind of things you need to do in order to develop your conventional wisdom? You need to go to school, right? When you go to school, you can develop your wisdom. So one is that by going to school, you can develop your wisdom. And by reading books, you can develop your conventional wisdom. And also by listening to the talks of the well-wishers and wise people, you can develop your wisdom. I recommend you to listen the talks, TED Talks, TED, TED Talks, right? TED Talks are more effective and more valuable talks. Don't spend your time just playing games and watching all those funny cartoons. Okay? You spend your time to listen TED Talks. You can learn something. And also by discussion with educated people, you can develop your wisdom. And also by watching, you can develop your wisdom, like watching documentaries, watching historical documentaries, watching geographical documentaries, right? And watching the nature documentaries. You can develop your wisdom by doing those things, right? Yeah, that's why it's very important. So this is to develop your conventional wisdom. Then what you should do to develop wisdom in Buddhism? Ultimate wisdom. What do you need to do to develop ultimate wisdom? You must listen. Listen to what? Listen to music in order to develop your ultimate wisdom? No. You must listen to the teachings of the Buddha always. You must come to the temples, you must listen to the teachings of the Buddha, you must listen to the talks of the monks in order to develop your wisdom. And also you can read books which are related to the teachings of the Buddha. You have Tipitaka, 3 baskets of the Buddha, right? Sutta Pitaka, discourses of the Buddha and the rules of the Buddha, Vinaya Pitaka, Abhidhamma Pitaka, highest teachings of the Buddha. So all those are on the internet, you can read them. When you read those things, you develop your wisdom. It is called Suttamaya Prajna, Suttamaya wisdom. You can get that wisdom by reading the Buddhist scriptures and also listening to the teachings of the Buddha. And the second one, you can gain your wisdom, Chintamaya Prajna, by logical analysis of yourself, logically think, right? Sometimes when you hear the teachings of the Buddha, you can logically examine those things, whether they are true or not. You can analyze logically those teachings of the Buddha, right? So that is called Chintamaya Prajna. By logical analysis of logical analysis also help you to get some kind of wisdom in Buddhism. And the last one is Bhavanamaya Prajna. This is the most important one. By practicing meditation, you can get the wisdom, right? We have 2 types of meditation, Samatha meditation and Vipassana meditation. Insight meditation and calm meditation. In order to develop your wisdom, you must practice insight meditation, Vipassana meditation, right? We can talk more about later on about meditation. Those are the things that you need to do in order to develop wisdom in Buddhism. And there are some other things you can do in order to develop wisdom in Buddhism. You can ask from wise people and also keeping the things clean and also balancing 5 faculties and avoiding foolish people and also associating with wise people and reflecting on and analyzing the Dhamma and also having inclined towards the developing wisdom. So these are the other things that you can do in order to develop wisdom, right? And sometimes our good birds also will help us to develop wisdom, and some of our past deeds, good deeds, may help us to develop our wisdom. And also mental good health also will be helpful us to develop our wisdom, right? What happens if you are born like deformed person? You can't develop your wisdom. If you are born like blind, if you're born mute, you can't develop your wisdom. That's why you need to have good birth to develop your wisdom also. Those are the extra things that you must have. So this is the end of the talk today, and I wish you all the best. We do not have much time to talk because later on we have a special puja today. I had to conduct that puja as well. I had to conclude my talk here. And if you wish to listen more talks, if you want to listen to this talk again, you can go to the YouTube, and it is on the YouTube, and you can listen again. And next month also we have another talk. You can come and listen. Teruvan Saranai.